Individuals not only create good content, they also ask good questions. So, Christian, coming up here, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Your name or introduce
Only if you want to know who you are.
Sorry. I'm Justin Chang, senior at the college. Thank you so much for the presentation. I actually had a question in regards to, I've always been fascinated with the shift from sort of the Yahoo model to the Google model, directory based versus the search based. Do you believe, and I think this question is to both of you, do you believe Facebook is much more that kind of directory based, albeit with sort of a stream feature? And will we move towards a direction where we view sort of an affinity or a relationship rather familiar towards people as we do information, where we'll just seek them out, and we'll come to this moment where we just open up a page and it's like, let's just search everywhere in the world and not just have it right there in front of us with people's status updates and whatnot.
Until 6 months ago, we were all about just people. Connect with people, and connect with brands and the Facebook page. It was all within like the Facebook microcosm. Not just things called the Open Graph, where any object in the web is now tagged. So you can like a Canon 5D on Best Buy and Amazon. So now on our search box, when you search something, actually those objects that are on Facebook pop up. So I think there's going to be a relevance for search that's tied to some taxonomy around these social objects that will drive new discovery. I don't think our search is fantastic right now. I think with the provision all the data is there. I think the question is, how does discovery actually evolve? I think it goes from like people doing it in the Yahoo days to an algorithm doing it, or to maybe now a combination of an algorithm with people.
Hi, yeah, Greg Battle. I have a question with regards to when David, you were talking about the most disruptive things that are going on now. With, when we look at like the Googles and Yahoos and Bings today, ones who are more controlled by a link economy. They win in a link economy. Google will win in a link economy. And in a social economy, we're talking obviously about the Twitters and the Facebooks. But the one interesting thing that we've kind of seen with say global like for Facebook is that rotation of inventory that is link based. Okay, which if it's addressable, via crawler or something like that, okay, it can go into their ingest and it can be attached and ranked. But when it goes into, say, a global like, which is a private API, okay, and not necessarily shared, when I start rotating content that was universally available to everyone into a private platform, what are the dangers there that you see, or what, and who's maybe attacking that, or is there opportunities there? Obviously, there's a huge opportunity if you own that inventory if you're Facebook. But are there any other challenges to that?
Huge challenges where Google is very upset by that. I mean, the corpus of public documents on the net, accessible by any crawler, is growing at about that rate. The corpus of private documents behind Twitter or Facebook's ecosystem, largely Facebook, is growing like that. And Google doesn't get to touch any of that unless these guys let it. Now they just let Microsoft or in a certain partner basis they can make this private corpus available, but it's a huge threat to the PageRank-oriented view of the world. And Google knows it. Marissa Mayer just said last week, she's like, I wish they wouldn't keep going behind the wall. I mean, there's a problem with it. And Facebook knows it too. It's a fantastic asset. So is it a threat to the openness of the web? Could be, yeah. Depends what these guys do with it. When there's 2 billion people on Facebook, which there will be, and we're liking things and providing Facebook with a great view of preferences, for that to be entirely closed, is a risk. But if it's only good for Facebook and it's not good for everyone else, then they'll get disrupted doing it. So they're smart companies. They'll find a way to make it good for everyone.
So as consumers move more away from the traditional media, I agree with the trend, but I kind of see a problem as well. Popular criticism seems to be that without the money that's created by a lot of advertisers, news organizations and even content providers don't have the money to both research actual good news and actually check the facts, and the good shows don't have the money to actually produce things that are not reality TV. So people just become opinion pieces all the time. So how do we convince either customers that because they're expecting to get this content for free. So how do we expect them either that they're going to have to change their opinion and start to pay for some of the content that they get, or do you think that there's just other ways to monetize it?
I think an issue with your core thesis, which is that you need to aggregate access to content for it to be economically viable. If that was the case, you'd still only have 3 broadcast networks. I mean, the reason why there's 295 channels because the people who watch Animal Planet are segmented and therefore more valuable to the advertisers. But that aside, I do agree with the notion of newspapers being in a lot of trouble. And I do actually have a strong belief that journalism is a profession and an art that I as a consumer and appreciate. And I do believe that, I also strongly believe that paywalls are not the solution. So how do you actually save newspapers without paywalls when CPMs are plummeting? Microtransactions might be one model, but at the end of the day, I think there's going to be consolidation in newspapers in general. I think this notion of having the fixed cost of printing and distributing newspapers is going to go away. Digital, USA Today, right? Largest circulation newspaper a couple of years ago, slashing circulation and going digital. Huffington Post, I think, is a great example of people that got it, started with digital, and are actually monetizing fairly well relative to their peers on the online space. So models are going to change, incumbents are friends, and they definitely should feel friends. That being said, I think I can take the French road and say that we should support them and give them funding, but I disagree with that as well.
You said that in word.
There's a need to actually find new business models, and I don't think they're payables.
Yeah, so similarly, I don't agree with the woe is me, these journalists are in peril because no one will pay for content anymore. The problem is that the cost structures of the institutions for whom they work are misaligned with the economics of the future. And we see this happen every time an incumbent is disrupted. And it's really hard to say, all right, well, we need to fire half the people in the company, cut people's salaries by 30%, move out of our building at 43rd and 8th Avenue, stop flying in private jets. And these are very hard decisions to make. So incumbents tend not to make them. And as a result, they get really disrupted. Their economics go like that. And new value is created because the venture capital-backed startups steal share. We see this over and over again in every industry. So that's what's going to happen. But it doesn't mean that journalists don't get paid. It just means that they might not get paid $250,000 a year at the New York Times to write 2 stories a week, 4 stories a week. And I'm a huge, huge New York Times fan. So I have a problem with the way they run their business, but not in the quality of the work that their newsroom does. So I just think the economics of the business are changing, and people will still be paid to be journalists, and it will still largely be an advertiser-subsidized ecosystem, but, the economics will.
The question I have is around, hypothetically, if one were to start a business in social networking, there are kind of 2 ways to go about it. One is you can leverage a network that already exists. So, for example, Facebook, you can use Facebook Connect and kind of use the network. The other way, of course, is to build your own network. The question I have is, there are obvious risks and benefits to going either way. I think in the older days, if you were in Microsoft way, everyone would say, just get out of the way, go find something else to do, because they'll squeeze you out of the market. Today, when you're looking at the network, it's almost the same way with Facebook in that it's very hard. There's a theoretical cap on the number of websites or social networks that people want to be a part of. And so if you're trying to create your own network, it's tough to do that. So the question I have is, do you guys have other thoughts on the risks and benefits of creating your network versus tapping into Facebook's, for example, or doing it the other way around?
I mean, that's over, right? I think that question it's already happened. There will be more than one graph, but Facebook will have the largest social graph on the planet. We might make subsets of different groups, probably leveraging their graph. But I mean, there's a Foursquare graph, which is really a subset of your Twitter and Facebook graph, right? There's a yarn lovers graph at Ravelry.com, but I'm just, they're going to use the graph first provided by Facebook as a mechanism to maybe prove their change or all. So I think there are different reasons for your graph, but you wouldn't start an application today saying, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is give people tools to assemble their groups. I mean, that's how you go.
And why would you? It's kind of like, why would you not? Why would you actually build server farms today when you can use Amazon cloud service, right? The cost, we give you the richest graph you could probably get for free, and then you can expand it into whatever you want. And by the way, you get to retain the data. You don't have to give it back to us. And you don't have to write back to us. Once you take it, it's yours. Our belief is that social experiences benefit all of us, and that if we can help by actually providing the social core, and so other people build other experiences like Spotify, social music, Amazon, social shopping, our vision of what the internet becomes will be easier.
I would say that Twitter is the only sort of asterisk you've got to make around this, in that largely because they started with a different mechanism for building their graph, that it was asynchronous and not synchronous. They were able to allow a different purpose for the graph to create, an interest graph, if you will, less about a social one. And I think my read is, despite Facebook's very quick maneuvering to offer similar things, I think Twitter will peacefully coexist for quite some time as a different graph, influenced by your Facebook one perhaps at one point, but a different graph.
And LinkedIn, I think, they do all different.